just want to cover some of the stuff in the New Testament and the Old Testament and show you guys that the law never changed other than men adding to the law. And the men that were adding to the law in the Messiah's day were the Jews of the time. And you're going to see in the Old Testament, there's nothing new under the sun. So we're going to start in Matthew 15. I'll read 1 through 3 and then 7 through 9. But again, I'll post this in case anybody wants to go back and watch it. But there's going to be a lot in here. And it's the Messiah in his day, but it's also going to take us back into the Old Testament. And it's going to show what happens when men decide to do the opposite of what Yahweh commands. And again, there's another teaching that I have that goes with this, which is when Israel wanted to have a king appointed over them instead of just following Yahweh. So there's a lot that goes to this, and we'll see how far we get. But we'll start in Matthew 15, 1 through 3. It says, Then came to Yeshua scribes and Pharisees, which were of Jerusalem, saying, Why do thy disciples transgress the tradition of the elders? For they wash not their hands when they eat bread. But he answered and said unto them, Why do you also transgress the commandment of Yahweh by your tradition? So already we're seeing a correction being made. The scribes and Pharisees are saying, Hey, Yeshua, why aren't you and your disciples washing your hands according to the traditions of the elders, which is not written anywhere in the law? This is man-made Talmudic tradition. All right, Matthew 15, 7 through 9. Listen to what Yeshua calls them. You hypocrites, well did Isaiah prophesy of you, saying, This people draweth nigh unto me with their mouth, and honoreth me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. But in vain they do worship me, teaching the doctrines for the commandments of men. Okay, so just in Matthew 15, we're seeing the Jews of the time, scribes and Pharisees, coming to Yeshua saying, Why aren't you doing our tradition? And again, when people go into Paul's letters and they say, well, the law is filthy rags, they have no idea that Paul was teaching against this Pharisaical mindset. All right, Matthew chapter 23, 3 through 4. It says, All things, therefore, whatsoever they tell you to observe, and this is when they're seated on the seat of Moses, observe and do, but do not after their works, for they say and do not do. For they bind heavy burdens that are grievous to be borne and lay them on men's shoulders, but they themselves will not lift a finger to help them. So we just saw Yeshua in Matthew 15 call them hypocrites, right? He said, Well did Isaiah prophesy of you. So this was going on in the days of Isaiah as well. Matthew 23, 23 through 26 says, Woe to you scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you tithe mint and dill and cumin, and have left undone the weightier matters of the law, justice, mercy, and faith. So what are the scribes leaving out of the law? He says they're tithing mint, dill, and cumin, just like the Christian church is tithing, right? And yet they don't believe in keeping the law. And he says you have left undone the weightier matters of the law, justice, mercy, and faith. But you ought to have done these things and not to have left the other undone. You blind guides who strain out a gnat and swallow a camel. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you clean the outside of the cup of the platter, but within are full of extortion and unrighteousness. So again, going back to the teaching yesterday, what is the opposite of unrighteousness? It's righteousness, right? Verse 26, you blind Pharisees, first clean the inside of the cup and of the platter, that its outside may become clean also. Change has to happen within before the change in your walk happens without. And then, only then, can men test your fruit, right? If you're gonna be told how to judge someone, how to test someone, it's by the fruit, right? By their works, by their actions, by their deeds. If they bear rotten fruit, you should be able to see that immediately. And this is exactly what's happening with the Messiah. Matthew 23, 27 through 30. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you are like whitened sepulchres, tombs, which indeed appear beautifully outward, but are within full of dead man's bones and of all uncleanness. So let's just stop right here. What is the Messiah quoting from right here when he says this? He's calling them hypocrites, and he says, you are like whitened sepulchres, which indeed appear beautiful outwardly, but within are full of dead man's bones and all uncleanness. Let's go to Ezekiel 22, 25 through 28. It says, there is a conspiracy of her prophets in the midst thereof, like a roaring lion, ravening the prey. They have devoured souls. They have taken the treasure of precious things, and they have made her many widows in the midst thereof. Her priests have violated my law, and have profaned my holy things. They have put no difference between the holy and the profane. Neither have they showed a difference between the unclean and the clean, and have hid their eyes from my Sabbaths, and I am profaned among them. Her princes in the midst thereof are like wolves, ravening the prey to shed blood, and to destroy souls, to get dishonest gain. And her prophets have daubed them with untempered mortar, seeing vanity and divining lies unto them, saying, thus saith Yahweh, when Yahweh hath not spoken. So who is he? If he's quoting from Ezekiel, right? Then he's telling them, on the outside, your sepulchres are beautiful, but on the inside, you're full of dead man's bones and full of all uncleanness. They didn't know the difference between the two because they would preach the Torah, but they had no understanding of it. Man-made traditions. All right, back to Matthew 23, verse 28. Thus ye also outwardly appear righteous to men, but within you are full of hypocrisy and iniquity. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites, because you build the tombs of the prophets and garnish the sepulchres of the righteous. Not only are they building the tombs, but they're also making the money off of them, right? Just to put away good people. Verse 30, and you say, if we had been in the days of our fathers, we would have not been partakers with them in the blood of the prophets. Same thing the Christian church is doing today. Anybody that comes on here that preaches righteousness and teaches you and shows you line by line, precept upon precept, what truth is, the church hates you for it. Again, there's going to be nothing different in these last days. If a remnant is saved, then how are we going to get past that? If Scripture says in the end days a remnant will be saved, like Yahweh has always kept a remnant, then how are we going to get around what is being said by the Messiah right here? He's calling the chief priests and scribes, all of them, he's calling them hypocrites and scribes and Pharisees. Isaiah 29, 9 through 15. It says, stay yourselves and wonder. Cry ye out and cry. They are drunken, but not with wine. They stagger, but not with strong drink. So this has nothing to do with alcohol. Bad doctrine. For Yahweh hath poured out upon you the spirit of deep sleep, and has closed your eyes, cut off from the truth. The prophets and your rulers, the seers, hath he covered. Meaning, the people that know truth, they're zipping it up. They're not speaking. And there's going to come a day soon. I'm telling you guys right now, the people that you see on here teaching the truth, there's coming a day soon where they will be silent. They will not be teaching. Verse 12, and the book is delivered to him that is learned, saying, read this, I pray thee. And he saith, I am not learned. Wherefore, Yahweh saith, for so much as these people draw near to me with their mouth, this is what Yeshua was just quoting, and honor me with their lips, but they have removed their heart far from me, heart of stone. And the fear towards me is taught by the precepts of men. In Isaiah's day, they were teaching the precepts of men, not just in the Messiah's day. So do you think Paul is now coming along saying, oh, the law is filthy? No, it was the people that were teaching the law that were filthy. Verse 14, therefore, behold, I will proceed to do a marvelous work amongst this people, even a marvelous work and wonder. For the wisdom of their wise men shall perish, and the understanding of their prudent men shall be hid. Woe unto them that seek deep to hide their counsel from Yahweh, and their works are in the dark, and they say, who seeth us, and who knoweth us? This is what we were talking about yesterday as well. When you allow the truth to be your guide, you take on Yeshua's yoke, that light from Yeshua is exposing the darkness that is in a man. These people are going to get to a point where they're going to be in such disarray that they're going to be asking and begging for someone to try to study this book for them. And the people that are going to be left are going to be saying, I can't, I don't understand it, I'm not learned. Right? Why? Because they're teaching the doctrines of men, and they refuse to hear the truth. And Yahweh has placed on them a deep spirit of slumber, a strong delusion. Again, if you think the strong delusion is something new, it's not. It happens every time men disobey the Most High. Titus chapter 1, 13 through 16. This witness is true. Wherefore, rebuke them sharply, that they may be sound in the faith, not giving heed to Jewish fables. Did you hear that? Who was Yeshua just rebuking? The Jews. Not giving heed to Jewish fables, the doctrines of men, and the commandments of men that turn from the truth. Unto the pure all things are pure, but to them that are defiled and unbelieving is nothing pure. This is why people eat pork. This is why people profane the Sabbath. This is why people keep Christmas and Easter, because there's no pureness in them, right? All things are pure to them now because the Messiah came, right? But even their mind and their conscience is defiled. They profess that they know Yahweh, but in works they deny him, being abominable and disobedient unto every good work, and reprobate. Again, remember, what did we just read in Matthew 15:8? This people draweth nigh unto me with their mouth, and honoreth me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. But in vain they do worship me, teaching for the doctrines, the commandments of men. Mark chapter 7, 3 through 13. It says, for the Pharisees and all the Jews, except they wash their hands, oft eat not, holding the traditions of the elders. And when they came from the market, except they wash, they eat not. And many other things there be, which they have received to hold, as the washing of cups and pots and brazen vessels. and of tables. Then the Pharisees and scribes asked him, "Why walk not thy disciples according to the traditions of the elders, and eat bread without unwashed hands?" And he answered and said unto them, "Well hath Isaiah prophesied of you hypocrites, as it is written, This people honoreth me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. Howbeit in vain do they worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men, for laying aside the commandments of Yahweh." What are they doing? They're teaching their own doctrine and laying aside the commandments of Yahweh. He says next, "You hold the tradition of men, as the washing of pots and cups, and many other such like things do you do." And he said unto them, "Full well you reject the commandment of Yahweh, that you may keep your own tradition. Filthy rags. For Moses said, Honor thy father and thy mother, and whosoever curseth father or mother, let him die the death. But you say, If a man shall say to his father or mother, It is Corban, or to say that it is a gift, by whatsoever thou mightest be profited by me, he shall be free. And you suffer him no more to do aught for his father or his mother, making the word of Yahweh of none effect through your tradition, which you have delivered, and many such like things do you. Did not Moses give you the law, and yet none of you keep the law? Why do you go about to unalive me?" Yeshua answered and said unto them, "I have done one work, and you all marvel. Moses therefore gave unto you circumcision, not because it is of Moses, but of the fathers. And you on the Sabbath day circumcise a man. If a man on the Sabbath day receiveth circumcision, that the law of Moses should not be broken, are you angry at me because I have made a man every whit whole on the Sabbath day?" These people just weren't getting it, right? If Yeshua was healing on the Sabbath day, they had a problem with it. They were calling that works. And Yeshua says, is it wrong to do good on the Sabbath? Is it wrong for me to heal and make someone whole? Same chapter, John 7:45 through 49. Then came the officers to the chief priests and Pharisees. So at this point, now they're trying to have Yeshua arrested. Then came the officers and chief priests and Pharisees, and they said unto them, Why have you not brought him? And the officers answered, Never spake a man like this man. Then answered them the Pharisees, Are you also deceived? Have any of the rulers of the Pharisees believed on him? Listen to this. But this people who knoweth not the law are cursed. Who's cursed? But this people who knoweth not the law are cursed. This is why in Revelation 22 verse 3 it says, And there shall be no more curse. Because if you know the law and you're keeping it, you'll have right to the tree of life. What is the perseverance of the saints? Those that keep the commandments of Yahweh and have the testimony of Yeshua. I don't understand, again, why this is difficult, but let's go to 2 Kings 17, 18 through 20. Let's see if there's anything new under the sun. Therefore, Yahweh was very angry with Israel and removed them out of his sight. There was none left but the tribe of Judah only. The other 11 tribes are gone. Also, Judah kept not the commandments of Yahweh, their Elohim, but walked in the statutes of Israel, which they made. Are you hearing it? Yahweh was very angry with Israel and removed them. 11 tribes he removed out of his sight, and only Judah remained. Also Judah kept not the commandments of Yahweh their Elohim, but walked in the statutes of Israel, which was removed, which they made. Statutes and commandments that they added to the law of life and liberty. This is why they were divorced. And Yahweh rejected all the seed of Israel and afflicted them. He did what? He afflicted them. How? Deuteronomy 28, the curses of not keeping the law. That's how he afflicts them every single time. And he delivered them into the hands of the spoilers, the locust army, other nations, until he had cast them out of his sight. When Yahweh turns his face away from us, it's not a good thing. Right now, we have the Messiah pleading on our behalf, thankfully. Thank Yahweh that he sent his son, and thank the son that he was willing to lay his life down for you. For those of you that are out there that are going to these Christian churches and believing these lies that Paul has changed the law somehow, you guys are delusional in believing that, because nobody can change the law. Hosea chapter 10, 1 through 3. Israel is an empty vine. Now remember, Israel is the vine. Keep that in mind. Israel is the vine. He bringeth forth fruit unto himself. According to the multitude of his fruit hath he increased the altars. According to the goodness of his land has he made goodly images. Their heart is divided. Listen, when the heart is divided, this is not a good thing. It means they're serving two masters. Their heart is divided. Now shall they be found faulty. He shall break down their altars, and he shall spoil their images. For now shall they say, we have no king, because we fear not Yahweh. What then shall a king do unto us? And again, they had already learned this in Kings, in the book of Kings, right? When they said they didn't want to follow Yahweh. Appoint for us a man to rule over us. And Yahweh said, okay, I'll give you a man to rule over you, but that man is going to send your children to war. That man is going to tax you. That man is going to put you under a yoke of bondage. Hosea 10, 12 through 13. Sow to yourselves in righteousness, reap in mercy, break up your fallow ground, your heart, till the soil of your heart. Matthew 13, so that the seed that's planted there can grow on good soil. Sow to yourselves in righteousness, reap in mercy, break up your fallow ground, for it is time to seek Yahweh till he come and rain righteousness upon you. Deuteronomy 32, his word, his doctrine will distill like the rain and fall upon the tender herb. You have plowed wickedness, and you have reaped iniquity. You have eaten the fruit of lies, because thou didst trust in thy own way, and in the multitude of thy mighty men. Teaching for what? The commandments of the doctrines of men. Doing their own thing. Changing Yahweh's law into something else. 1 Peter 1:18 through 19. For so much as you know that we are not redeemed with corruptible things as silver and gold, from your vain conversation received by traditions from your fathers, but with the precious blood of Yeshua, as of the Lamb without blemish and without spot. What is being said here in Peter? For so much as you know that you were not redeemed with corruptible things, as gold and silver, from your vain conversations that you inherited from the traditions of your fathers, but you were redeemed by the precious blood of Yeshua as the Lamb without blemish and without spot. We were warned of this, again, Colossians 2:8 through 9. Beware lest any man spoil you through philosophy and vain deceit, after what? the tradition of men, after the rudiments of this world, and not after the Messiah. For in him dwelleth all the fullness of the Godhead bodily. Now, what does it mean when it says, beware lest any man spoil you through philosophy? Oh, according to Josephus, the Messiah returned in 70 AD. Was Josephus a believer? Is Josephus part of Scripture? Or the vain deceit after the traditions of men, scholars, church fathers, scribes, people that hold up a piece of paper, or the first thing that they do when they join your live is tell you, oh, I just want you to be aware. I have a doctrine and I've been to school for 25 years. You're going to have a tough time with me. That's haughtiness. Cemetery school, exactly. Isaiah 5:20 through 21. Woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, that put darkness for light and light for darkness, that put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Woe unto them that are wise in their own eyes and prudent in their own sight. Let me ask you guys a question. A lot of people have asked me this in regards to Revelation when, here, let me go to it really quickly. In Revelation 8 about wormwood. So in Revelation chapter 8, we see, I'm just going to read it. It says, and when he had opened the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven for the space of a half hour. Now, the facts about verse 1 is that women cannot be raptured, because clearly it says that there is silence in heaven for the space of a half hour. So there is no rapture, ladies. Sorry. I'm just kidding. I've heard people use that, and I thought I'd throw that in there for a laugh. All right. So there's silence in heaven for the space of a half hour, which is explained in the book of Enoch, what this silence is about. All the angels are looking down, and they're just like, whoa, because it's about to get heavy, right? Listen to what happens. And I saw 7 angels which stood before Yahweh, and to them were given 7 trumpets. So in verse 2, how many angels are standing here? 7, right? Now listen to verse 3. And another angel came and stood at the altar, another, an 8th, having a golden bowl or censer, and there was given unto him much incense, that he, the angel, should offer it with the prayers of all the saints upon the golden altar, which was before the throne. Who stands before the throne of Yahweh? The marvelous light, the mountain that burns day and night in the book of Enoch. Verse 4, and the smoke of the incense which came with the prayers of all the saints ascended up before Yahweh out of the angel's hand. Now, who's offering our prayers to the Most High? Our high priest and mediator, Yeshua, the 8th angel that's standing here, the bright and morning star. And the angel took the censer and filled it with the fire of the altar. What is the fire of the altar? The 144,000. And he cast it into the earth, and there were voices and thunderings and lightnings and an earthquake. And the 7 angels which had the 7 trumpets prepared themselves to sound. The first angel sounded, and there followed hail and fire mingled with blood, 144. And they were cast upon the earth. And a third part of the trees, people, evil men, were burned up, and all green grass was burned up. The second angel sounded, and as it were, a great mountain burning with fire was cast into the sea, and a third part of the sea became blood. The remnant, people, this is the mountain that was not cut by human hands in the book of Daniel, chapter 2. Okay? Now, this is what people are usually asking me about in verse 10. And the third angel sounded, and there fell a great star from heaven, burning as it were a lamp, and it fell upon a third part of the waters, and upon the fountains of the waters. What are the fountains in the waters from our study yesterday? Remember when we were talking about how Yahweh with Moses took the branch with the bitter water, and he threw the branch into the water, and the branch makes the bitter water sweet water so they could drink it? Listen very closely. And the name of the star is called wormwood. What does wormwood mean? Bitterness, confusion, And a third part of the waters became bitter, and many men died of the waters because they were made bitter. All of this stuff is prophetical speech. And again, I had thought about starting this live and going through the book of Revelation, but I didn't think I was going to have the energy. We'll see how it goes. So, we went through this verse in Isaiah 5:20 and 21 yesterday. Jason had us rereading this over and over again for a reason. Woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, and put darkness for light and light for darkness, and bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Woe unto them that are wise in their own eyes and prudent in their own sight. These are people that do not go line by line, precept upon precept. They don't see if all the prophets are in agreement. They just make up their own doctrine. Big problem. Isaiah chapter 66, verse 3. He that killeth an ox is as if he slew a man, and he that sacrificed a lamb as if he cut off a dog's neck. Let me not go there. He that offered an oblation, as if he offered swine's blood. He that burneth incense, as if he is blessed an idol. Yea, they have chosen their own ways, and their soul delighteth in their abominations. So in other words, let's not do what Yahweh said to do. Let's do what we want to do. Let's make a golden calf. Yahweh will love us if we build a golden calf. Aaron, make us a golden calf. We need to worship Yahweh. Moses has been up on that mountain for nearly 40 days. We can't wait any longer. We need to worship. What happens? They build the golden calf, which, by the way, goes back to the image of Satan, the goat, the beast. And they start to worship him. This is why the sacrificial law was put in place. And remember, we'll go into this in a little bit, but Yeshua and the Father both quote this. It's in the book of Hebrews. And the Father said it, that he required mercy, obedience over sacrifice. Obedience over sacrifice. And again, when people say Yeshua was sacrificed by his Father, the Son learned obedience through the things he suffered, and he was an offering. He offered himself. Not the same thing. Isaiah 29, 13 through 16. Wherefore, Yahweh saith, for so much as these people draw near to me with their mouth, and with their lips they do honor me, but have removed their hearts far from me, and their fear towards me is taught by the precepts of men. Therefore, behold, I will proceed to do a marvelous work amongst this people, even an astonishing work and a wonder. For the wisdom of their wise men shall perish, and the understanding of their prudent men shall be hidden. Woe unto them that seek deep to hide their counsel from Yahweh, and their works in the dark. And they say, who seeth us? And who knoweth us? Surely your turning of things upside down shall be esteemed as the potter's clay. For shall the work say of him that made it, for shall the work say of him that made it, he made me not? Or shall the thing framed say that him that framed it, he hath no understanding? And again, I was talking about this yesterday with my computer, right? If you're making something or you've designed something, and then that thing starts to speak to you and it says to you, why did you design me this way? As the builder of that thing, you have full authority to pick it up and smash it into pieces if you choose. People forget the reason you have breath in your lungs is because of the Father. And he can take that breath anytime he pleases. You're being lended a spirit, the Ruach, a part of the Father. You're being lended that to see what you're going to do with it. And if, like I said before, when he sends his Son back and you're found tipping the scales, believe me, the punishment is going to be great. All right, Romans 10, 1 through 4. It says, brethren, my heart's desire and prayer to Yahweh for Israel is that they might be saved. But I thought we were already saved. This is Paul. I thought you were already saved by faith through grace alone. It's not what Paul is saying. Brethren, my heart's desire and prayer to Yahweh for who? Israel, is that they might be saved. For I bear them record that they have a zeal of Yahweh, but not according to knowledge. For they, being ignorant of Yahweh's righteousness and going about to establish their own righteousness, have not submitted themselves unto the righteousness of Yahweh. For Yeshua is the end of the law for righteousness to everyone that believeth. Christians, are you going to now say that this is the end of the law of life and liberty? Because you don't understand Paul? All right. Paul continues the message of salvation. Romans 10, 5 through 7, and then we'll move on. For Moses describeth the righteousness which is of the law, that the man which doeth these things shall live by them. Why would Paul be talking about Moses describing the righteousness which is of the law, that the man which doeth the things that are in the law shall live by them? You can either choose to live or you can choose to die in your sin. But the righteousness which is of faith speaketh on this wise, say not in thy heart, who shall ascend into heaven? That is to bring Yeshua down from above. Remember, we were reading this earlier in the Old Testament. Or who shall descend into the deep? That is to bring Yeshua again from the dead. We don't need to say this. Why? Heart circumcision. It's either in you, the Spirit is in you, or it's not. The heart of stone is removed, or it's not. Proverbs 19, 1 through 3. Better is the poor that walketh in his integrity than he that is perverse in his lips, and he is a fool. What were they speaking? What did we just read? These people honor me with their mouth and with their lips, but they're in their hearts are far from me. Better is the poor that walketh in his integrity than he that is perverse in his lips and is a fool. Also the soul that be without knowledge, it is not good, and he that hasteth with his feet sinneth. The foolishness of a man perverteth his way, and his heart fretteth against Yahweh. The foolishness of a man perverteth his way, and his heart fretteth against Yahweh. Why? Because he has a heart of stone. So again, how does all of this come to be? How is it that some of us are waking up and the rest of the people are still asleep? Well, because this was prophesied to happen. We were told that we would inherit lies. And we just read part of it, right? The scribes and Pharisees were saying, well, had we been in the days of the prophets, we wouldn't have partaken of their bloodshed. What did Yeshua call them? Hypocrites. Well did Isaiah prophesy of you hypocrites. Jeremiah chapter 13, 10 through 11. This evil people which refuses to hear my words, which walk in the imagination of their heart and walk after other gods, Yeshua, or Jesus Christ today for the Christian church, you're making the Son of God, God. Is he a God? Is Yeshua a God? Yes, he is a Ben Elohim. He is a form of a God. He is divine. Let's put it that way. All of the angels are divine. There's no doubting that. But he's not God. They walk after other gods to serve them and worship them. Shall even be as the girdle which is good for nothing. For as the girdle cleaveth to the loins of a man, so shall I have caused to cleave unto me the whole house of Israel and the whole house of Judah, saith Yahweh, that they might be unto me for a people and a name, and for praise and for glory, but they would not hear. So you could be praise and glory, because Yahweh's promised that he would bring back Israel and Judah, the Gentiles, those that are still asleep, that are Gentile. But once they wake up, they're no longer a Gentile. Jeremiah 16:19. O Yahweh, my strength and my fortress and my refuge in the day of affliction, the Gentile shall come unto thee from the ends of the earth, and shall say, surely our fathers have inherited lies, vanity, and things wherein there is no profit. Who is this book written to again? Israel and Judah, the 12 tribes. So when this is being spoken of in Jeremiah 16:19, when the Gentiles shall come unto Yahweh from the ends of the earth, where are we scattered? To the ends of the earth. The four winds will gather us, but we are scattered to the four corners, or the ends of the earth. And what are they saying? Surely our fathers have inherited lies and vanity and things wherein there is no profit. Acts chapter 7, 51 through 53. Again, listen to what Paul is saying. You stiff-necked and uncircumcised in heart and ears, you do always resist the Holy Spirit. As your fathers did, so do you. Which of the prophets have not your fathers persecuted? And they have slain them which showed the prophets before the coming of the just one. Of whom have you now been betrayers and unalivers, who have received the law by dispensation of angels and have not kept it? Now, we're going to stay in the same chapter. Acts 7:54, the stoning of Stephen. When they heard these things, they were cut to the heart, and they gnashed on their teeth. Why are they cut to the heart? Why are these people being cut to the heart when they're hearing the truth and gnashing on him with their teeth? Because they know it's the truth. They know that they were part of this unaliving of the just one. Acts 21:19 through 20. And when he had saluted them, he declared particularly what things Yahweh had wrought amongst the Gentiles by his ministry. And when they heard it, they glorified the master and said unto him, Thou seest, brother, how many thousands of Jews there are which believe, and they are all zealous of the law. So when these Gentiles come back into understanding, what are they zealous for? The law. But the law's been done away with, right? Luke chapter 6, 46 through 47. And why call ye me master, master, and do not do the things which I say? Whosoever cometh to me and heareth my sayings and does them, I will show you to whom he is like. So many people are referring to Jesus Christ, which is, in my opinion, a lawless Messiah that's been taught by the Roman Catholic Church. But nonetheless, Yeshua is standing right here saying, why do you come to me saying, Master, Master, and don't do the things which I'm telling you to do? I have the words of life, and you people don't want to listen. Whosoever cometh to me and heareth my sayings and does them, I will show you to whom he is like. All right, Matthew chapter 5, 17 through 20. Now that we know who was teaching the filthy rags and what the filthy rags are. Now we can understand the context. Think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill. For verily I say unto you, until heaven and earth pass, not one jot or tittle shall in no wise pass from the law until all is fulfilled. Whosoever therefore shall break one of the least commandments and shall teach men to do the same, he shall be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whosoever shall do them and teach them, the same shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. For I say unto you that except your righteousness exceed the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees, you shall in no case enter the kingdom of heaven. Now, let's talk about this righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees. Were they able to name chapter and verse out of the Old Testament, out of the law and the prophets? Of course. They were trained to do so. Did they understand it? We just read that they were unrighteous, that they were hypocrites, that they taught these things, but they didn't do it themselves. So when I see people use this, Matthew 5:20, to say, well, Jesus Christ said that unless our righteousness exceeds the scribes and Pharisees, which were super smart, those were the smart people, that we can't enter the kingdom of heaven. Therefore, there's no way you can keep the law. Yeah, mainstream pastors today, exactly. I can't tell you how many times I've heard this. And again, everything that we just read, if there's somebody new in here and you're doubting who crucified the Messiah, it's these people right here that he's talking about in Matthew 5:20. Unless your righteousness shall exceed the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees, you shall in no case enter the kingdom of heaven. How hard is it to exceed the righteousness, which is unrighteousness, in the scribes and Pharisees? Were they righteous for crucifying our Messiah? So we can't use that as an excuse to say that we can't keep the law, can we? All right, 1 Kings 21, 1 through 4. And Rehoboam went to Shechem, for all of Israel had come to Shechem to make him king. And it came to pass when Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, was yet in Egypt and heard of it, for he fled from the presence of the king Solomon, and Jeroboam dwelt in Egypt. And they had sent and called him, and Jeroboam and all of the congregation of Israel came and spoke to Rehoboam, saying, Thy father made our yoke grievous. Now therefore make thou thy grievous service of thy father and his heavy yoke which he put upon us lighter, and we will serve thee. Remember yesterday when Jason was showing you guys when they were going into the forest and they were told not to eat anything, and they were famished and weak, and they had no honey. They were being destroyed by their enemies because they had no strength. Their strength was abated. So it's no different than what's happening in 1 Kings chapter 12 right here. These people, especially they're in Shechem, but aside from that, Israel had come to Shechem to make him a king. Do you guys remember who Shechem is? Israel was going to the same people that unalived our Messiah to make them a king over them. And what happened to them? This king places a yoke of iron on their necks. Dude, I can't get past this kind of stuff. Verse 4 says, Thy father made our yoke grievous. Now therefore make thou the grievous service of thy father and his heavy yoke, which he put upon us, lighter, and we will serve thee. What did he do? He gave them the law without all the added stuff, without all the man-made traditions. Now, Let's look at this yoke. Go to Deuteronomy chapter 30, 10 through 14. If thou shalt hearken to the voice of Yahweh your Elohim, to keep his commandments and his statutes, which are written in this book of the law, and shall turn to Yahweh your Elohim with all of your heart and all of your soul, and allow him to remove that heart of stone, for this commandment, which I command thee this day, is not hid from thee, neither is it far off. Meaning it's not hard for you. It is not in heaven that thou shouldst say, who shall ascend unto heaven to bring it down for us that we may hear it? Neither is it beyond the sea that you should say, who shall go over the sea and bring it to us that we may hear it and do it? But the word is very nigh unto thee. It's in your mouth and in your heart that you may do it. So what is the yoke? What is the yoke that's been put on people from the very beginning? It's the opposite of not keeping the law. And it'll always be that. Proverbs 28 verse 4. They that forsake thy law praise the wicked, but such that keep the law contend with them. Those of us that keep the law are constantly contending with the wicked because they don't want to hear this. They don't want to hear truth. Now, let's talk about this covenant. Psalms 25, verse 14. The secret of Yahweh is with them that fear him, and he will show them his covenant. His covenant is a secret. According to Psalms, according to Yeshua. The secret of Yahweh is with them that fear him, that keep his commandments. He will show them his covenant. So who will understand Yahweh's covenant? What is the fear of Yahweh? Keeping the commandments. Proverbs 15 verse 9. The way of the wicked is an abomination unto Yahweh, but he that loveth him, that followeth after righteousness. Romans chapter 10, 6 through 11. But the righteous, which is by faith, speaketh on this wise. Say not in your heart, who shall ascend into heaven? That is to bring Yeshua down. What is Paul quoting? Kind of sounds like Deuteronomy. Or who shall descend into the deep? That is to bring Yeshua again up from the dead. But what saith it? The word is nigh unto thee, even in thy mouth and in thy heart. That is the word of faith which we preach. Paul just said he preaches the same exact message that Moses gave the people in Deuteronomy. But Paul teaches a different gospel. No, he doesn't. You just don't understand Paul. And again, we've been telling you, Christians, Peter warned you about Paul. Peter told you Paul was difficult to understand for those that were unlearned and unstable, and that you would twist Paul's letters as you do the rest of the scripture. Verse 9, that if thou shalt confess with thy mouth the Master Yeshua, and you shall believe in thy heart that Yahweh hath raised him from the dead, you shall be saved. Now, the Christian church has made this to be, if you confess Jesus is God, you will be saved. That's not what Paul said. First, he reiterated what was given to Moses to give to the people, which is keeping the law. And he's saying, do not say, who shall ascend into heaven or go down into the deep to bring Yeshua up from the dead or to bring him down from heaven. Don't say that, because the word's in your mouth. It's in your heart. And then he says, this is the word of faith, the word of faith which we preach. And then he says, if you shall confess with your mouth that the Master Yeshua, and shall believe in your heart that Yahweh raised Yeshua from the dead, then you shall be saved. For with the heart a man believeth to righteousness. No more heart of stone, heart circumcision. And with the mouth confession is made to salvation. What do you do when you enter into covenant with the Father? You get baptized, right? In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. That's called being converted. That's called confession. Not where you go sit in a box and you tell some other man your problems and call him Father. For the scripture saith, whosoever believeth on him shall not be ashamed. What were Adam and Eve in the garden after they partook of Satan's filthiness? They were ashamed. And even Paul says this, that he fears that by Satan's subtlety, as Eve was beguiled, that we would be beguiled by Satan, by his subtlety. Deuteronomy 28:45 through 48. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee, till thou art destroyed, because thou hearkenest not to the voice of Yahweh your Elohim, to keep his commandments and his statutes, which he commanded you. And they shall be upon you for a sign and a wonder, and upon thy seed, your offspring, forever, the curses, if you refuse to keep the law. Because thou didn't serve Yahweh your Elohim with joyfulness and with gladfulness of heart, for the abundance of all things, therefore shalt thou serve thy enemies, which Yahweh shall send against thee, in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron about thy neck until he hath destroyed thee. What is the yoke? The yoke that we were just reading about, where Yeshua was saying, you hypocrites, you scribes, you Pharisees, you lay these things on men's shoulders, which are grievous to be borne, but you yourselves wouldn't lift a finger to do one of the things that you're telling them to do. Washing your hands, the washing of cups and tables and all these other things, which Moses commanded none of you to do. You're doing your own tradition. So what's the yoke that Yahweh places on those who disobey him, or his son, for that matter? Other nations will come in, and they will take everything from you. And in today's, let's talk today's terminology. You will have to live on credit cards and from paycheck to paycheck. You will have your body in disarray, disease. You will have other nations that are telling you what to do. You will work for other people. People will take your homes. People will take your spouses. This is what happens when we don't follow the commandments. And for some people, I just want to throw this out there because I know that a lot of people, including myself, some of us choose to do this stuff, and then our significant other chooses not to, and they leave. This is not the same thing. Matthew chapter 11, 29 through 30. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and you shall find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Which yoke would you rather have? Keeping the commandments like Yeshua taught us, or the yoke of other nations coming in and all these curses in Deuteronomy 28 falling upon you? 1 John chapter 5, verse 3. For this is the love of Yahweh, that we keep his commandments, and his commandments are not grievous. But the Christian church says, there's 613. You can't keep them all. You break one, you break them all. How much do you love Yahweh, Christians? Because if you love Yahweh, and then you tell me that it's too difficult to keep the 10 Commandments, it's too difficult to keep the Sabbath day holy. Now hear me out when I say this, because I understand that some people have to work for other people, because we are in Babylon, and some people can't get the Sabbath day off. They're trying, and Yahweh knows their heart, but at least they're making the effort, and Yahweh will provide a way. But the people that just have these days off, and they go out and they're playing sports or watching sports or doing whatever it is they want to do, and they're not keeping that day separate, and they say, oh, every day is the Sabbath, because they don't understand what day Yeshua was talking about, the 1,000-year millennial reign, when we enter into his rest. Huge difference. Huge difference. And I can tell you this, a huge change in your life. If you are somebody that struggles with anxiety or stress or anything like that, where you never have any peace, you're never comfortable in your own skin, you don't like being around other people, start doing what Yahweh said to do. He promises you in Deuteronomy 28 that you will be the head and not the tail. That in your body you will be blessed. Everything that you put your hand to will profit. And this doesn't just happen overnight. This is a relationship. You have to go into a sanctification process, and it's not fun. I'm going to tell you right now, this is why most people do not do it, because they think once they enter into sanctification, because things get a little bit rough, they quit. And they say, well, surely I can't be doing this right, because all of these things are happening to me. No, you're on the right path. Satan's attacking you, and you're being tried, like Yahweh said. As soon as you enter covenant with him, he's going to try you like silver and gold to see if he can trust you. It's the same thing with an actual marriage, people. If you're married and your spouse cheats on you, is there going to be trust there ever again? Probably not. When Yahweh gave us a bill of divorcement, did he give us a second chance? He sent his son. His son loved us so much. This is brotherly love. Yeshua loved us, brothers and sisters, his own brothers and sisters, so much. He joyed in his Father's creation so much that he was willing to be an offering. And he says, Father, take my blood, which is pure and holy and just and right, because the Messiah's heart is after Yahweh's heart. And then when the Father looks at you and you've gone through the sanctification process, and again, we're all in the sanctification process. It's just those that are coming into it as beginners, newbies. When you enter into that, it's the most dangerous place you can be, because you're not fully armed. You don't know the Torah and the law that well yet. You're just learning. This is why I told the woman last night not to go rush out and get baptized right away. First, you need to understand what you're getting into before you go back into covenant with the Father. This is a contract, a binding contract, which is sealed with blood. And if you break that contract, and Yahweh opens your eyes and shows you the things that are in this book, and you turn away from it, it's impossible for you to go back, because you've taken his son and you've rehung him on that pole to an open shame. So this is serious business. For the people that think that they can get into this word and then use it to their advantage, and leaving a wake of damage in other people's lives, there's no excuse, especially for the people that are proclaiming to be watchmen, proclaiming to be whatever it is you want to title yourself as. You better be careful, because now that you've placed yourself in that position, and again, the reason I'm saying place is because either Yahweh calls you and you're obedient, and you do what the Father says, or you're appointing yourself into a position, and now you're going to be held accountable twice as heavy. Because every person you lead astray, their blood is on your hands. Second Timothy 2:8-10. Did I read this? No. 2 Timothy 2:8-10. Remember that Yeshua, Messiah, of the seed of David, was raised from the dead according to my gospel. Second witness that Paul preached the gospel. In which I suffered trouble, and as an evildoer, even to bonds. But the word of Yahweh is not bond. Therefore I endure all things for the sake of the elect, that they may also obtain the salvation which is in Yeshua Messiah with eternal glory. Listen very closely to what I'm saying. Paul, when he was Saul, was going after believers and was partaking in the unalivement, putting them in prison, and really just doing awful things to his brothers and sisters without knowing it. He hated Yahweh. And then Saul had a run-in with an angel, Yeshua. And Yeshua says, Saul, why are you persecuting me? Why are you coming after me and my people? And then Saul became Paul. But as soon as Saul becomes Paul, Yeshua blinded him, put scales over his eyes. It was a representation of the fact that a man that was from the tribe of Benjamin, that was persecuting his own brothers and sisters, that even Yeshua would take a man like that and bring him into what we now read as the letters of Paul. That would be a huge, huge stumbling block for many people. It's there for, Paul's letters are there for a reason. Make no mistake. I can tell you this, when I first started studying really deeply into Paul's letters, I was torn. Because I would read something and I'd be like, gosh, 1 second, Paul, you sound like you're talking about the law is good. And the next second, it sounds like you're preaching against the law. And I thought he was a heretic. I was like, I don't know if this is supposed to be in Scripture. And there's red flag number 1. When you start having intrusive thoughts like that, and you start wondering if books should be removed from the Bible, and again, these are letters, but nonetheless, when you start getting into that place, pretty soon it'll be, well, this doesn't sound good, going to remove that. Well, this doesn't sound good, might as well remove that. Well, now the whole New Testament, yep, don't believe that. Or it's only the New Testament and the God of the Old Testament is evil. It's because these people are double-minded. Right? Just as we just read, their heart is split into two. It is divided. So Paul is saying that in which I suffer trouble as an evildoer, even to bonds, but that the word of Yahweh is not bond. Therefore I endure all things for the sake of the elect. Shipwrecked twice, imprisoned many times. I mean, we could go on and on and on about everything that Paul went through, but don't think that Paul had it easy, people. Paul started off in sin, and Paul still was paying for that sin even after being called. The best way that I can explain this in my own life, I used to live the way that I wanted to live. I was raised in a Christian home, and I wouldn't be here preaching the word at all if it weren't for my mother being a believer. Because even though we didn't know the truth fully, my mother has always kept me in the Word. She's always pointed me back to the Father. So because I came from a home that I had and I knew that there was a God, I just didn't trust him, because when I would read the Scripture, I would say, well, this looks like some sort of evil checkers match or chess match where I'm just a pawn on a checkers board. And it's Satan and God playing a game with me and messing up my life. Not being able to see the full picture. And here I am, the potter, or the clay, judging the potter. Just like Paul's speaking about in Romans chapter 9. So Paul's suffering all of these things for the sake of the elect, that they may also obtain the salvation which is in Yeshua with eternal glory. So when you're going through things, count it all joy, right? That's what Paul says. Why are we to count going through sufferings joy? Because it makes us stronger, number one. Number two, if you know that you're being tested and you know you're being chastised, then you know you're not a bastard. That's pretty important. You know that the Father loves you. And again, the more of this stuff that we go through, it's preparation for what's to come, so that when tribulation actually starts, we won't be in disarray. Will we be going through rough stuff and hard times? Yes. That's the indignation period. We all have to get through that. But we're not appointed to wrath. And for those that are seeking after Yahweh, you'll be considered as part of the remnant. And the remnant, again, it's a small number out of 8 billion people. And when you look at who the book is written to, it's written to the 12 tribes of Israel.